whilst I gave my initial reaction after the 3-0 defeat to Nottingham Forest, I said I'd leave any sort of wider observations about Julen Lopetegui until I'd calmed down. I was quite annoyed immediately after the game. And, you know, I'm sure if you watched the video that I published straight away afterwards on this very channel, you'd have seen that I was agitated. I've calmed down, massively calmed down actually, but I don't think my concern has lessened. My mood, my temper might have lessened a little bit, but my my overall opinion and my level of concern has remained the same. I think somebody's going to have a tough decision to make if this continues under Lopetegui, because we're going to have a wasted season at West Ham otherwise. If you were to pin me down now and say, what do you actually think will happen? I don't think he'll last the remainder of the season. I think he'll always get that game. I think that whenever there's an El Sacchio, I think we'll win it. And then I think we'll do badly for 2 or 3 games. I think we might pick up a point. I think we'll lose a couple of games. We'll get a win. I think we might win 1 every 5 games. Maybe draw 1 and win 1 of every 5 games. And I think we'll be, you know, we sort of look like a 16th, 15th, 16th place team. And that just is nowhere near good enough. That's not why we spent all the money. And irrespective of who was backed, be it Stuyton or Lopetegui, the squad was backed during the summer transfer window. But it was actually something that occurred to me because I was very annoyed, not just watching the game. I was annoyed watching the game. In fact, it got to 70 minutes. I thought, oh my goodness, can't believe I've got to watch the rest of this. It felt like a punishment. So goodness knows what it was like for anybody that travelled up to Nottingham. I've got to say that. But I think when I was looking at it, one of the things that frustrated me was the number of players out of position. And I just find the whole thing weird because this wasn't the version of Lopetegui that I thought we were getting. I didn't even know that this was a version of Lopetegui. I can't be bothered. I've repeated it so many times. The manager, the pragmatic manager I thought we were getting wasn't this one. The one we've got now, it's square pegs in round holes constantly. It was Rinus Michels, I think his name was the head coach of Holland in the 70s. So the 1974 Dutch team is, even though I think they got to the final but didn't win it, but was, a lot of people would say that was it. It was total football, one of the best football teams that there's ever been. And the idea of total football in that team that had Neeskens and Johan Cruyff was that apart from the goalkeeper, any player could find himself comfortable in any position. Now, believe it or not, I'm too young to remember that team. I was born in 1974, so I don't remember that team. But I do remember the subsequent Holland teams. And I remember the total football. And I remember Ruud Gullit, who still to this day is one of the finest footballers I've ever seen in my life, talking about total football. Now, I saw Ruud Gullit play in central defence. I saw him play in central midfield. I saw him play on the right wing, and I saw him play as a striker. And I couldn't tell you which one of those he was best at. He was world class in all of them. And I found myself thinking about total football, and I found myself thinking about that whole Dutch system when I looked at what Lopetegui is asking West Ham to do. Because he doesn't have those players. He doesn't have John Charles at West Ham. He doesn't. Or any number of those players who are multifaceted. West Ham have got a load of really good players, and some of them are very good at 1 or 2 things. Mohamed Kudus is great at dribbling. He's got a hell of a long shot on him. And you can go through, but let's go with Wan-Bissaka, shall we? Wan-Bissaka has got brilliant athleticism, is one of the best one-on-one defenders in the league. But he is not a total footballer. He can't, during a match, turn into Kylian Mbappe or Vinicius Junior. He just can't do that. That's not what he does. Yet it appears to be that that's what Julen Lopetegui expects him to do. When he's not getting red cards and yellow cards, Edson Alvarez is a really decent central midfielder. He can actually jump in at the back and help his defence out. What he can't do is be in a system where he can be playing midfield 1 minute and then be the last line of defence in a high line. He can't do that because he's not as multifaceted as that. He's not all of those things that he's good at and rapidly quick as well. Yet that's the job he's asked to do. I got very frustrated. I felt a bit guilty about being frustrated with Emerson because I don't think he was our worst player against Nottingham Forest, but he wasted some really good opportunities to produce accurate crosses or accurate cutbacks. But his cutbacks weren't very good. But you know what? He's Emerson. He's not Jarrod Bowen. Jarrod Bowen is the guy in our team who's really good at the cutback. That's what Jarrod Bowen does, and he finishes really well. But again, you're constantly looking at players within the team who are being asked to do things that they're not capable of doing, because they're not these all-round footballers. And I don't understand where this came from. As I say, I understand it. We're in a Dutch team. I don't understand this version of Lopetegui who's rocked up, and then suddenly we are expected to... Every player is expected to be able to dovetail and play in several different positions and be comfortable in them. You've got to be as good at chipping the ball and playing the long pass and dribbling as you are at tackling or heading. It's. I just find the whole thing odd. I think one of the things that exemplified it was... Did you see? Of course you saw. The bit where Jean-Claude Todibo chipped the ball up. He almost tried to Ronaldinho the ball out of defence. And I think... Do I blame him for that? Yeah, it was a stupid thing to do. Do I think that Lopetegui has asked him to do that? Well, he might have bloody done. I think certainly Lopetegui has asked Max Kilman. Max Kilman nearly won a free kick on the edge of their box. Now, listen, far be it from me to overly criticise that in itself, because we saw Max Kilman create an assist earlier on in the season for Jarrod Bowen. But it's still a situation where we appear to be asking our central defenders to do some of the creating for us. Now, sometimes it appears to me that they're asked to be the playmaker and play really like long balls, like a Hollywood pass. The Beckham-type pass, if you want, is meant to be played by our centre-backs for some reason. I don't know. But we're also asking them to dribble as well. Now, it's the really odd thing that we do have a tricky left winger, right? So, but what was seen to be asked to be doing the job was Max Kilman was meant to be doing a little bit of dribbling. He did a dribble down the left. The person doing the crossing on the left was Emerson. Whilst that actually our tricky left winger, the one guy that can travel with a ball, and actually the one guy who impressed against Manchester United gets shoved into a completely alien position. And I know I may be repeating myself in that aspect, but that was really something. He created this new formation, if you want. I'm sure he's played it before, but he actually played 3 central defenders in the 3 centre-back positions. Whoa, brilliant. Having created that solid base, we weren't great going forward, but the defence was okay. That we conceded a few chances up until the point where they scored, but more or less Fabianski was all right. What we didn't do was create anything, not a shot. And I think the reason was that having created this solid defence, what he then did, he said, "Oh, Jarrod Bowen, I'm not going to play you on the right. I'm going to play you somewhere else. Oh, Paqueta, I'm not even going to play you centrally. I'm not even going to play you on the left. I'm going to play you somewhere else. Let's swap you around. Actually, you can go in Bowen's position. And then what I'll do is, do you know what, Crescencio, I'm going to ask you to move in field a little bit deeper as well." So when they got the ball, you see how deep Somerville was. We weren't able to break. We weren't able to make an efficient counter-attack. Having created the solid defence, he didn't create some tactics that allowed us to attack. It was absolutely crazy. And me having calmed down and not being angry about it certainly hasn't lessened what I think I saw. I don't have any faith in him. I really don't. And I'm looking at it now and I'm thinking, why don't I want him to go? And I can only really think of one reason, and because I don't. And I thought, well, why is that? Why don't you? You know, look at the evidence before you. Because I have to say, we got very lucky against Manchester United. I said it last week. I thought the VAR was ridiculous. I thought Danny Ings scuffed Danny Ings scuffed his shot. It went to Somerville. We scored. They should have scored loads in the first half. I thought we were lucky. Had we not have been lucky, and there was a lot of luck there. So basically, we relied on the referee making a dodgy decision. We relied on a missed kick, and we relied on Manchester United missing all their chances and being so bad that they sacked their manager. That's why we won that game. If that hadn't have happened, then we would have lost to Tottenham, 4-1 to Tottenham, lost against Manchester United, and then got this drubbing this week, right? I think we'd be looking at a very, very different situation at the moment with Lopetegui. But back to what I was saying, the one reason, why didn't I want him to go? And what it was just out of, it was something sort of harking back to West Ham, we don't sack our managers. I couldn't put my finger on anything brilliant, anything where I thought, actually, this is improving and it's getting better. I think that the tactics, if anything, it's not the tactics I'm looking for this incremental improvement since the first game of the season. I'm not seeing it. We might be worse. We might be worse. We might be getting, never mind worse since last season when we were crap. Look, we might be worse now under Lopetegui than we were at the start of the season under Lopetegui. How about that for you? So now I'm sort of asking myself, why would you not want him to go? And it was this whole thing about, maybe it's a little bit too early. But then that's it. That's it. It's this thing in my mind that you can't get rid of a manager after 3 or 4 months. That's it. It's almost like a tradition, if you want. Something that just shouldn't be done. No evidence that anything's getting better or things are improving. I hope. But I'm not seeing much. I can't see anything. Can't see anything in the tactics. Players are getting fed up. That is sure. That's for certain. I'd happily debate that with anyone. I think you have to make a really, really big case to say that the players are not. And I think, as I've said, I think they're confused, totally confused with the tactics, which is why you're seeing all these red cards, all these yellow cards all the time. I think they're frustrated. I think they're being told to do so many things they're not comfortable with, and they then find themselves, because of these tactics, 10, 15, 20 yards out of position, so then they're having to run to get back, and they're doing silly things. Because they're being asked to do things that they're not comfortable with. In many respects, play this total football. It's absolute rubbish. It's terrible. And it's become a little bit of a joke, this thing that Lopetegui had spent all of this time watching us last season and provided this dossier to West Ham, to David Sullivan, to whoever, to say, this is my plan, this is my project for West Ham, this is how I see West Ham progressing. And basically, after he left Wolves at the start of last season, he stayed in the UK, told all his coaches to stay in the UK, and he studied us. He studied us in detail. And the joke has become, it don't look like he's seen us play at all. And it's a good line, right? It is a good line. You laugh the first few times. But now it's not funny anymore. And you start to think, well, maybe he hasn't. But I don't think that's the truth. I think he has. I think he did. And that's even worse. Because if he did watch us last season, he's still deciding to do this. It means it almost like he's incapable of doing it. There was very much this suspicion that, not a suspicion because he'd said it. It's like being in the Premier League is his dream. It's like he's watched the Premier League from afar throughout his career and thought, I can turn it on over there. So that's why he didn't leave England after Wolves. He stayed here to get another Premier League jog, because he was convinced that he had the special formula, that special something that could make him thrive in the Premier League. But he can't. He's behind the curve. He seems like yesterday's man. His ideas are... I was going to say his ideas are old, and I guess that would play into what I was saying about, total football and stuff like that. But in many respects, his plans are too grand. Far too grand for what West Ham and the players are capable of. And I don't remember, look, when he truly did have world-class players at his disposal, which I guess you'd have to say Spain and at Real Madrid, I don't know what type of football he was playing there. I obviously wasn't too good at Real Madrid because he got booted out, didn't he? But what did he do at Wolves? Did he do this stuff at Wolves? Is everybody interchanging positions and basically asking players to play out of position all the time? I think... I don't know. Look, I probably need to see a bit more to be convinced. And I mean be convinced that I think he's lost it. I don't think he knows what he's doing. I think the worse it gets, the more pressure he comes under, the more muddled and more puzzled it becomes. And I just see nothing. It can't all be about the striker. But that's been horrendous. I just don't see it. I'm honestly, I'm starting to see a situation now. Sorry, as depressing as it is, but we seem to be back to last season when we get beaten. We're getting spanked a lot of the time. We are getting thumped. I just don't see anything coming back, and someone needs to really press him in these press conferences. I'd really like someone to. He's got a habit of not answering questions. I mean, someone needs to double down, and someone needs to, when he doesn't ask the question, when he doesn't answer it, someone needs to ask it again. People need to ask him, what is this? Are you going to persist with this half and half thing of trying to win the games at half time? Or what are you doing? Why are your tactics all over the place? Why are you asking players to do things that they're not comfortable with? Those are the type of questions I want him to be asked. Not people saying, Julen, any fitness updates ahead of the next game? I'll leave it out. Do you know what I mean? Don't bother. Honestly, it's a waste of a press pass, quite frankly. Absolute waste of one. I don't know. Look, we're going to need some answers. And I'll tell you what, we won't get them, right? As fans, we won't get them. But if I was in charge, these are the questions I'd be asking now. What the bloody hell are you doing, mate? What's that? Where's your portfolio? Where's your dossier of stuff? All this stuff. Because I'd want to play. Look, if I would want to play West Ham. I really would. If I was another team, I would want to play West Ham. And if I tell you now, if I was Sean Dyche and I'm Everton, I'm absolutely delighted that my next game is West Ham.